One thing which is different about Australian politics, maybe to almost anywhere in the world, is question time. It's what makes it a contact sport, and definitely means that you have to be across your deck, because otherwise you're going to get hammered over there.
You make a great point. The actual Parliament itself, it's like a footy field, right? So you might be having a beer with your opposition not necessarily before, but after the game or before the game.
Definitely not before.
Not before, not in Parliament, right? But then also when you walk into the chamber, it's on. The government have chosen to stand
Point
with
of
the
order.
Green.
I move by leave.
That this House condemns the Minister for Sport.
For tourism. And we're back at the drawing board again, trying to fix the mess that this government has created. The member for Richmond has spent 2 years inciting hate towards the Jewish community.
Leave the chamber for an hour and a half.
It's the game, it's the footy game, and you are fighting. It is a blood sport. It's a full contact sport in terms of there is all kinds of shouting and screaming and carrying on. I think, especially in the Victorian and the Australian Parliament, we're very parochial and vocal about standing up for what we believe is right. And so, yeah, it's really, really interesting to block some of that stuff out. And I think very interesting in terms of politics, and I get this a lot from people that come and visit the Parliament, is they can't believe that we're the ones making laws about how people should operate in their work life and everything else, but we probably break every rule in the book in terms of how one treats one another in the Parliament.
So to anyone who's worried about the hate speech laws, you guys definitely know.
Well, we copped a lot, right? And an interesting story in that I remember it was the sports and tourism minister, and it was during the lockdowns, and he's the racing minister as well. And he was getting up and speaking about something, and I was sledging him like there was no tomorrow, talking about, well, the people in the racing industry hate you, and you wouldn't be invited to anything on Melbourne Cup Day, a big racing day. No one would want to see you because you've locked them down and you've shut down business, and they hate you, absolutely hate you. And then I got up and he attacked me like there was no tomorrow. And so this massive fight between us, and we finished and walked out of the chamber, and I get into the lift and I turned around and there he was. And I kept thinking the whole time, this guy's never going to talk to me again. And he was just, "G'day Dave, what are you up to now?" And it was like nothing had ever happened. And it was just such a reminder to me that in many instances, what happens on the footy field stays on the footy field. And of course, you're fighting for what's right, and you want to make sure you make your point, but you can't take it too personally, because you've got to move on and deal with a bigger game. And so, yeah, it is very much a game of ideas, but also you've got to try and put the opposition or the government off their game. That's your job.
So what would you say would be the goal? How would you score?
Well, I suppose in that particular instance, it's trying to put that individual off their game, because that's why you're sledging and interacting the way you do. But also, you're trying to make the point that you're the better side. And sometimes it does get, I said, we can get a bit childish and get carried away. But yeah, more broadly, I suppose, you're making the idea that the government aren't up to it. And especially in opposition, you want to be able to show that the government aren't doing what they're promised. The problem, and I suppose the frustration, is government ministers don't really have to answer a question in question time. So you never really get an answer. So you're waiting for the gotcha moment, but the gotcha moment might be they've forgotten some information, but it is really hard to be able to score, as you say. But I think it's more about how you can then make them look bad in the media, and social media has changed a lot, actually. So interesting just being able to get that rise out of your opposition and then showcase it on social media thereafter. So a lot of people, when they're making their contributions in Parliament, are thinking about their social media content while they're actually making their contribution. You see that, I've noticed that change in the last few years.
Paul Keating had social media, it would have been
very interesting.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
I think that's, I'm sure it's the same for American politics in people are thinking about how can I actually sell something to the public? Because let's face it, not many people are watching a parliament and what happens in a parliament. But they do watch what happens afterwards on social media, and if somebody looks pretty bad in the way they've answered something, that'll get a lot of likes. But I also noticed the fact that when there's that slight slip up, then you've got to make that real winner opportunity out of it. And we had a policy, we didn't have a policy, but the government had a policy around some of the knife crime that we've had on a huge amount of machete attacks that have been used. So we called for bans of machetes and all kinds of things. The government decided, well, they were going to follow it, but go one step further. They were going to create these machete bins. So we thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then they spent $13 million on these machete bins.
The $13 million machete bins, we've got to unveil them and cut a ribbon to say they're now open for business. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a government that has been sitting on their hands doing nothing.
Now, we thought, well, we can have a lot of fun with this. And because they didn't really do their homework in the way that it was done, we took that $13 million and it became, we really leaned into that as being something that was just everywhere.
Labor has slashed $50 million out of the police budget in a crime crisis, and meanwhile has wasted $13 million on 40 machete bins, hoping that a crim's going to drop them off after committing a crime.
We had a similar thing where the government were doing a rail project and they spent a few $1 million on pot plants, but they weren't actually buying pot plants, they were hiring them. So you had these pot plants that were being hired to make the offices look really good. And of course, we just thought that was a massive waste of money. So to make that point, we were carrying around pot plants through the parliament and doing social media videos to show people at home that this is a government that wastes money. And so I suppose governments try to be more and more methodical in hiding behind what they're doing and have something carefully managed and scripted. But I think the best things are being able to attack that in a very informal way. And I know you know about the one with the Commonwealth Games. So the government we were meant to host the Commonwealth Games right now. So, and the government made that a really big selling point leading into the last election. They said, we're going to build all this infrastructure for regional Victoria, and then we'll build some sporting facilities and all kinds of things. And then they realised it was going to cost a lot more than they actually anticipated. So they decided, rather than go ahead, they'd just cancel them. And to cancel cost $600 million. And so we made a really big deal about the cancellation. Everyone would. And as you can imagine, and to make it the best way possible, our social media thing that went absolutely bunter was my colleagues. We all did a mock Commonwealth Games at an athletics track.
Today would have been the opening ceremony for the Commonwealth Games here in Victoria.
First event, the running out of money relay.
Using different events, and with those events showing that how much money is being wasted and how the government don't kind of look after things. And I suppose what I've noticed is because people are really short on time, and this is probably your world as well, that things need to be very visual and tangible. And that's where you can articulate a message really well by having a bit of fun.
Your mindset was talking about some of the positive or the fun ways in which you've gone about some of these very serious issues, because $13 million for some bins, it was absurd to everyone's mind. The Commonwealth Games situation is a travesty. We spent yesterday walking around meeting a few businesses that are talking about how hard they're struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. So
how do you deal with that balance of trying to keep an upbeat feel? Is that almost an Aussie thing? Is that a mindset that you've done internally, or is that just the natural way that you've gone about it?
So that's, again, a really good point. And especially in opposition, you tend to be very critical and very negative all the time. And you don't want to spend your life being negative and critical. And especially all politics is local. And the thing that I love about being a local member is they've got so many wonderful things that are happening in our community each and every day. And you're part of it. And even though you don't necessarily have the checkbook being in opposition, you can really advocate for something and get it done and then be part of that solution. So that's the real positive. That's what keeps me up every day. That's what gets me going every day is the fact that we can do really good stuff and help people. I just left here, a guy was literally sleeping on the streets, homeless, and trying to deal with that, trying to help this guy find a roof over his head for tonight. So it's really granular in what we can do.